You know those days where the code it just flows. I think it's a feeling pretty much every developer knows and loves, but it's not exactly something you can, put on your resume. We're talking about the vibe, right? That kind of magical state of pure productivity. So in this explainer, we're going to break down what it is and, maybe more importantly, how you can get there more often. I mean, seriously, who hasn't had this happen? The rest of the world just kind of fades away, and for a couple of hours, you're not just typing commands. You're basically conducting a symphony of logic. And then, bam! You solve that one bug you've been staring at for days with this sudden, almost subconscious flash of insight. That feeling, that's exactly what we're calling vibe coding. All right, so let's actually put a name to this feeling. Vibe coding. It's this approach to programming that really emphasizes intuition, that flow state, and just being in harmony with your whole environment. It's way less about, brute forcing a solution and much more about understanding the problem so deeply that the solution just feels like it's pouring out of you. It's really the difference between fighting with your code and dancing with it. Now, I can already hear some of you out there. Vibe? Come on, this is engineering, not some hipster coffee shop. And look, you're right, to a point. This isn't about replacing cold, hard logic with good intentions or positive thinking. Not at all. It's about creating the absolute perfect conditions for your brain to do its absolute best work. So let's break down what's really happening when you get in the zone.
Well, it turns out this so-called magic isn't really magic at all. It's actually a combination of three pretty distinct components that we can not only understand, but we can actually learn how to cultivate them.
Okay, first up, we've got the cornerstone of vibe coding, the flow state. And no, this isn't just some made-up programmer slang. This is a real, well-documented psychological phenomenon. So this is where vibe coding gets grounded in some serious science. There was a psychologist, and I'm going to try to say this name right, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He defined flow as that perfect sweet spot right between the challenge of a task and your own skill level. You get so absorbed that time just melts away, the focus is totally effortless. It is literally that feeling of being in the zone.
But here's the really important part. This flow state isn't just some happy accident that you stumble into. No, it's earned. It's built on a rock-solid foundation of expertise, which brings us right to our second component.
Let's be real. You can't just vibe code your way through a brand new framework you started learning yesterday. It just doesn't work like that. This state is the reward. It's the payoff for all those hours you spent grinding through syntax, figuring out design patterns, and staring at debug logs. It happens when all that conscious knowledge becomes so deeply ingrained that it turns into subconscious intuition. It's literally like muscle memory, but for your brain.
And finally, we've got the external catalyst. So you've got the skills, you're ready for the challenge, but now you've got to set the stage for the magic to actually happen. And this is the part where you have the most control. I mean, think about it. Your favorite lo-fi playlist, a clean desk, your IDE configured just the way you like it with all your shortcuts. These aren't just little quirks, right? They are strategic choices you're making to minimize distractions and free up all that mental bandwidth for the real work. Okay, so we've taken the vibe apart, we've seen the pieces. Now let's talk about how to actually build it back up. How can you intentionally create the conditions for one of those amazing coding sessions? Well, here's a practical toolkit for you. So here we go, a simple 4-step toolkit to get you started. Step 1, curate your soundtrack. And I don't mean just picking one playlist and calling it a day. Have a few options for different modes, Maybe some high-energy electronic when you're brainstorming, and then some chill, ambient lo-fi for that deep, focused debugging. Step 2, minimize friction. This is huge. Before you even write a single line of code, close all those distracting browser tabs, silence your notifications, and get any documentation you know you're going to need ready to go. The whole goal here is to remove every tiny little obstacle between you and the work. Okay, step 3. Time box your focus. You've probably heard of the Pomodoro technique. It is fantastic for this. Set a timer, 25 minutes of intense, uninterrupted work, then a quick 5-minute break. It's like training your brain to get into the zone on command. And finally, step 4, and this one is so important, embrace the messy first draft. Seriously, don't aim for perfection right out of the gate. Vibe coding is all about building momentum. Just get your ideas down, make it work, and trust your future self to come back and refactor it into something beautiful later. Okay, now this is really important. Vibe coding is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's not the right tool for every single job. Knowing when not to use it is honestly just as crucial as knowing how to get into that state in the first place. And this really makes the distinction crystal clear.
On the one hand, vibe coding is your absolute best friend when you're cranking out a first draft or prototyping. But on the other hand, when you're working on, say, a critical financial transaction algorithm or a safety-critical system, that is absolutely when you need to switch gears into that meticulous, deliberate, check every single line mode.
So what's the big picture here? When we zoom out, what's the final takeaway from all this?
Well, here's the bottom line. Vibe coding isn't some mystical state that you just hope to stumble into. It is the powerful, tangible result of a perfect alignment between three things: your deep knowledge, a truly focused mind, and an environment that you have intentionally crafted for success.
You know, ultimately, this is why so many of us fell in love with coding in the first place, right? That magical feeling of creating something out of nothing. It's not just about solving problems. It's about finding real joy and fluidity in the process of creation itself. So I guess the real question to leave you with is, what does it take to create your perfect vibe?